You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Fast ship. Never heard of a William Fall?
Never should I have.
It's the ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
What a piece of junk!
Covering Star Wars vehicles in less than 12 parsecs, this is Start Your Engines.
Don't get technical with me.
Here are your hosts, Paul Naylor and Mark Newbold.
You're listening to Start Your Engines. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who, if this ship had two cockpits, it wouldn't look any good. But if it had two seats in the cockpit, it'd be perfect. It's Paul Naylor. How you doing, Paul?
Well, I'm a little bit General Grievous on this episode, so if you do hear me cough a lot, that's not down to me being Star Warsy. That's down to me being pretty bad, poorly bad at the moment.
Oh dear, there's a lot of it going around.
We soldier on, don't we, my friend? We soldier on.
We do.
How are you?
I find I watched you on Good Morning Tatooine, and it really was like hack and cough on GMT this week. So hats off for getting through it. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Very busy. Obviously, we're heading up towards the festive period and all the expense that comes with that.
I've just finally managed to be a little bit festive. I've just gone to throw some outside lights on my bush outside, if you'll pardon the expression.
Wow, you are nothing if not glitterati. It's good to hear. We're going to talk about the A-Wing today, Paul. When you think of the original trilogy and you think of the vessels within it, obviously the first thing you think of, especially on the Rebel side, is the X-Wing, and then the Y-Wing probably, and maybe the Snowspeeder. But once you get to Jedi and we started to get all these other vehicles like the B-Wing, on the Imperial side like the TIE Interceptor, and then the A-Wing, what are your first memories of the A-Wing? Because it creates quite an impact in Jedi when it arrives.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we were saying before, the A-Wing, to all intents and purposes, is probably the most standard-looking starfighter in the whole fleet. The X-Wing's got a certain look about it, always has had. The B-Wing, when that came about in Return of the Jedi, that got a very sort of unique look to it. But the A-Wing sort of, it almost felt like it was probably the easiest ship for them to be able to afford and manufacture because it was so, want of a better word, ordinary.
That's a good point, because the X-Wing has got that silhouette, hasn't it? And the B-Wing, different, but that has it. And a lot of Star Wars vessels are instantly recognisable by their silhouettes. But like you say, the A-Wing, you could put the A-Wing in a lineup. I mean, a long-term Star Wars fan would recognise it because of where the engines sit and that sort of thing. But I think you're right. You know, the silhouette of it doesn't stand out in the way that the other vessels do.
To me, it reminded me a little bit of Thunderbird 2.
Yep, right. Okay.
You know, I don't know why, but it put that in my head. And then there was a range of crisps called like Space Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Space Raider that looked just like an A-Wing.
That's a good shout.
But I think for me, probably because of the age I was at the time, towards the end of the Kenner and Palitoy lines, my Star Wars collecting days had become somewhat sporadic. I had a B-Wing pilot. I never had an A-Wing pilot, and I never had an A-Wing. Now, I think A-Wings were only released on the Droids line. So, you know, they really were late to the party bringing out an A-Wing as a toy. And so for that reason, that particular vehicle commands such a high price, particularly if you've got it in the box. It's strange. I don't know whether you agree with this, but a lot of the Star Wars stuff, if toys were released at a certain time, then it would have become far more relevant and more important. Yeah. The B-Wing was quite late in coming out, so I never had a B-Wing. Had those vehicles been released around the same time as the first 17 Jedi figures, they would have probably resonated more.
I've never thought of it that way, but you're totally right, because the Y-Wing didn't come out till Jedi.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot to a Y-Wing, but you do see Y-Wings at the very end of Empire in the fleet. You don't see much of them anywhere else, but you see them at the end sort of buzzing the fleet. And obviously they're prominent in Jedi, not as prominent as A New Hope. If the A-Wing had come out as a vehicle much earlier, even when the Interceptor came out or the Grey TIE Fighter came out, then you would have thought, like you say, as a kid, it's such a tangible thing to have the toys in your hands. Yeah. The A-Wing would have felt more
involved.
When you think of Jedi, that you know, the vehicle comes in, it's in the Battle of Endor, it's quite prominent. But what are your first recollections of the vehicle?
I suppose for me, and it is its starring moment, we first see the pilot clutching his face, the ship's been hit, and he's hurtling towards the bridge of a Star Destroyer, and then we see it actually sort of crash through and burst into flames. I suppose for me that is the A-Wing's shining moment in Return of the Jedi.
If I had to think of a moment, a real tangible big moment, because you have seen A-Wings in sort of the media, certainly a lot of the games have included the A-Wing.
Yeah.
You know, and you've seen A-Wings in Rebels, and there's different moments where you see it, but yeah, that one where it goes through the bridge and poor old Admiral Piet's in there, you know, and that's a big end for him. But as you say, that takes down the Executor, really, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think the next shot, isn't that where we see it sort of like it upends and it's sort of then crashing into the Death Star?
Yeah.
And then you get that fantastic reaction from Admiral Akbar, which is so beautifully done, really, considering it's a puppet, where he just sort of like sits back in his seat and sort of almost looks reflective. It's not sort of like, yes, we've done it. It's sort of like, it's a bittersweet kind of moment for him.
There's moments in certain films. That bit in Jedi with Admiral Akbar is a real meaningful moment, not just in the battle, but as the character. Raddus has a couple of moments like that in Rogue One. And I think back to Attack of the Clones, where obviously Yoda's CG at this point, but there's that moment just as the battle's really kicking off and Anakin and Obi-Wan have gone after Dooku, and there's a shot where Yoda's just sort of pausing and thinking, and it's so well animated. And I know animation and puppetry are different, but the core idea of creating a character moment is exactly the same.
It is.
Just those little quiet moments make it all work, don't they?
Oh, they do. They do. I mean, they punctuate what otherwise would just be just a skirmish. So when you see those little nuances, not trying to get too deep on it, but it does underpin the stupidity of war, really. You know, it's sort of like he didn't really know how to feel.
Yeah.
That's what I got from it. He didn't feel, you know, this is incredible, we're winning, or almost deflated.
In the background, you see all these characters, essentially, they're not, but like basically high-fiving or fin-flapping as Moncals do. So everybody else is losing their minds because the Executor, we meet it in Empire, you get to Jedi, that ship has probably been the bane of the Alliance for a solid year. Yeah. So for an A-Wing, heroic sacrifice, a bit like the Hammerhead Corvette in Rogue One, isn't it? Just smashing into the Star Destroyer. That pilot's hit, he knows he's not going to make it, so he clearly steers towards the bridge. The odds of hitting the bridge on a Super Star Destroyer is pretty minimal, and down goes that ship. Yeah, you're right. Little moments like that make all the difference.
I think what it emphasises his importance as part of the rebellion, and the fact he's like a seasoned veteran, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's seen it all. So for him, it probably resonated more emotionally than it would have done with other people. It would have just been sort of like, yes, get in, we're stuffing him, and where he's sort of like a little bit more contemplative, should we say?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Tom Wilton, and you're listening to Fanfa Tracks.
Model and class.
Okay, so the A-Wing, it is a Kuat Systems Engineering RZ-1 A-Wing interceptor. It was designed by Whale X Bliss X, quite a famous name in Star Wars vessel designs.
Manufacturer.
Underground Engineers and Kuat Systems Engineering. It's a starfighter, obviously. To buy one new, shake the piggy bank, 175,000 credits, 90,000 used. Now, that's pretty hefty. We've seen some bigger vessels cost a lot less than that, and an A-Wing isn't really that big. It just makes me wonder why such a high cost, because we know it's fast. Back in the old Return of the Jedi days, the sketchbook came out, and there was a speed chart. And, of course, the Falcon was the fastest because, you know, it's the Falcon. But everything else, you know, the Interceptor was right behind it. The A-Wing was right on that. There's nothing in it, hair's breadth between an Interceptor and an A-Wing. So we know it's a crazy fast ship, but it's not massively heavily powered. I always think when you look back at the original Star Wars, and this is why modern Star Wars has done something that bugs me a little bit, in the sense that a lot of the vessels that we as kids growing up through the Star Wars era, to our best knowledge, the only vessels you had in A New Hope was an X-Wing and a Y-Wing.
Yeah.
Because if you had an A-Wing, you'd have sent an A-Wing down the Death Star Trench. In Empire, you know, if you'd have had B-Wings, bombers around, you'd have sent them against the Star Destroyer to give it hassle. So to have an A-Wing in our chronology, 1983 chronology, this is the new ship. And wow, look at that. The Empire's got these really cool pronged winged TIE fighters now.
Yeah.
We see the progression, but now they've kind of retrofit it so that A-Wings were around at that point, and B-Wings, as you saw in Rebels, were around at that point. What was your thoughts on that? Maybe it's me just being overly overthinking it, but I still think to this day that if an A-Wing was around at the time of Star Wars, you'd send that down the trench. It's too fast. Those Imperial ships could have never kept up with it.
That's the beauty of retrofitting things, though, isn't it? I mean, obviously, these things weren't designed at the time when the original release came out. I think with the technology that they've got over the years, they could have perhaps peppered a few of them into Star Wars. That would have been quite interesting to see a B-Wing lurking in the background or whatever. Whether that was needed, maybe not. The way I look at it is the Rebel Alliance, by virtue of its name, it's an alliance. There's all these different groups that come together. The group that had got the A-Wings and the B-Wings weren't on the scene for the Battle of Yavin. Another branch of the Rebel Alliance that became more familiar by the time we got to Return of the Jedi. When we talked about the Snowspeeder in the past, the Snowspeeder isn't a Snowspeeder. It's a speeder that's been modified to work in the snow.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why we couldn't have seen that vehicle in different scenarios. Hence, that's why we saw it in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
True.
Really, other than that, appearing in The Empire Strikes Back, we didn't really get any new significant Rebel vehicles of that ilk. No. So by the time we got to Jedi and we got the B-Wings and the A-Wings, it was like, what are we going to get next? The Q-Wing, the Z-Wing? What are we going to get? You know, it was
I think the next thing we got the E-Wing, didn't we? Which was quite a bit later. But I mean, at least, that did turn up in Ahsoka, so that was kind of cool.
And then bless them, we end up with the U-Wing for Rogue One. So it's nice that they start doing all these different ships. The letters of the alphabet make more sense, even though we've got Orabesh. So it's a bit weird anyway. But
that's a very good point. That is a genuinely good point. You've caught them out there. You really have.
But for me, I think the A-Wing, apart from that scene where you see it crash into the Star Destroyer, I'm surprised it's that expensive. I would have imagined it would have been more of a utility vehicle, you know, probably the cheaper ship in the Alliance that would be able to sort of like, they'd be able to have loads of them. So to hear that it was quite expensive, I suppose it's pushing up the ranks a bit. But what does annoy me, and I've spoken about this before, is I really wish, I mean, I love The Force Awakens. Happy 10th anniversary Force Awakens. But the one thing that I desperately would have changed would have been that we wouldn't have had X-Wings. We would have had something different.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had TIE fighters. We'd have had something different. It's a little bit like somebody having a Mark III Ford Cortina in Star Wars and then also in Force Awakens. It isn't different enough for my money. But I think we've had certainly modern iterations of the B-Wing as well. They were a lot slimmer, but there were certainly B-Wings, and I believe there was A-Wings in there as well.
There were later versions. Yeah, there was later versions of the A-Wing, which I'm sure at some point in time we will get to it, because it is a vast. The Star Wars Galaxy is a vast fleet.
When Starfighter was announced,
the
first ship that I thought of wasn't an X-Wing. I thought of an A-Wing. It was just the first thing that jumped into my head was, is he going to be, is Ryan going to be flying around in like some sort of form of A-Wing? But Starfighter is such a loose title, it could apply to anything, really, couldn't it?
It really could.
Technical specifications.
It's 6.9 metres in length, 4.47 metres in width, 2.47 metres in height.
MGLT speed chart.
5,100 G, that's 21 MGLT-S. Megalights per hour, 120 MGLT.
Maximum atmospheric speed. 1,300
kilometres an hour, but it's faster with the deflector shields on. So that, for an in-atmosphere vessel, that is really fast.
Yeah.
That is crazy. With all the atmospheric drag that different planets can pull, and obviously some atmospheres are different to what we know here on Earth.
Engine specs.
It's got two Newbold X377 Event Horizon sublight engines with dual MPS 8PR 99 power generator and fusion reactors. That's a lot of techie stuff. But basically, as you can tell by 1,300 miles an hour in atmosphere, that is some hefty, powerful engines. Yeah. Visually, when you look at an A-Wing, one of the most striking things about it, because as you say, the rest of it is fairly generic. It could turn up in Buck Rogers. It could have turned up in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
it's absolutely. The one vessel, the Macquarie-style vessel that could have gone into any of those places. And I guess if you look at, you mentioned the U-Wing earlier, if you look at Buck Rogers' vehicle from Buck Rogers in the 20th century, that's essentially a U-Wing with longer sort of prongs at the front. But the A-Wing would totally fit into that sort of hot rod vibe.
Yeah.
The engines on it are so visible and so impressive. That's the standout visual for me. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, I've not thought about that with Buck Rogers and the U-Wing. The A-Wing, for me, it feels more substantial. It doesn't look as flimsy as an X-Wing. It looks like
That's
it
true.
could get in there and get stuck in. It's not hindered by its shape. It's almost like a bullet. And the fact that it does the speeds that you've just been quoting, crikey, you wouldn't want to handle one of those, would you?
It does feel like the sort of the ship, if Colin McRae, bless him, was still around, the A-Wing is the kind of ship he would fly, isn't it? It's got that vibe, that rally vibe about it.
Oh, stick some Castrol GTX stickers on it, mate. Let's go for it.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark fanthatracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Hyperdrive system.
It's got a Class 1 hyperdrive. It's got an Income GBK785 hyperdrive unit.
Hull.
It's got a Serplex Z9 deflector shield projector, a titanium alloy frame and Durasteel outer hull. Now that's important. Durasteel, titanium. It's a tough ship. We see this in The Force Awakens, talking of 10th anniversaries. When you see the Falcon land on Starkiller Base and bounce. You see it on Jakku and it takes off and it's scraping, knocks that big thing down. And yet, to my mind, in the first three films, I never ever got the sense that the Falcon was just a solid unit, chunky. You know, you feel like if the Falcon bumped into something, you'd leave a dent on it. Turns out that's not the case. And when you read that on the A-Wing, again, that feels like if they had a crash landing, it's not just going to turn into wreckage. It'd probably just skip along like a pebble.
That's a nice way of looking at it. Yeah. I mean, the Falcon, to me, it got absolutely trashed in Solo, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Beautifully so.
And so when it crash lands in The Force Awakens in the snow, how on earth they got that back up and going again is beyond me, but they did.
They did. It's amazing. Every time I watch it, and I do watch Force Awakens quite regularly because I do enjoy it an awful lot, but every time that ship crashes, it makes me laugh.
Sensor systems.
It's got a Fabritech ANS-7E sensor unit with PA-94 long-range phase tachyon detection array and a PG-7U short-range primary threat analysis grid. That means little to us. It will mean lots to certain people who are into all the statty stuff. But it does illustrate that for such a small ship, just 6.7 metres in length, sensor units, tachyon detection arrays, primary threat grid analysis, it's a vessel that's rigged and set not only for fast attack, but it's very much aware of its surroundings. That's something that not every ship has got, which I found fantastic. And also avionics, it's got a Torplex RQ-9Z flight control avionics. So it's very aware of its surroundings. I think that's quite important to say.
No, I mean, I've not heard any of that sort of statistic for any of the Star Wars ships in the past.
No.
So that's almost like a unique set of stats. Going back to what I said about Starfighter, it would, in a way, be quite cool to see it turn up in that and give it some sort of new lease of life. It's a little bit like how R5-D4 has suddenly become such a big character. Yeah. You know, that's quite cute, isn't it? That we've now got another astromech that has become a hero because, again, and this is to do with the release of the figures. When that second series of action figures came out in 79, I think they came out, R5-D4, to me, was a bad guy. Why was R5-D4 a bad guy? I mean, all he was another bloody droid that was being sold in line with R2-D2.
Yeah, kids' minds work. He could have replaced R2-D2. In fact, for about 20 seconds, he did. And like you say, it wasn't his fault. And then, of course, years later, you had the whole Skippy the Jedi droid thing. He did it on purpose. He blew his own motivator because he knew that R2 needed to be the droid that did it. And now, okay, that's not canon, although it'll always kind of be there. Yeah. But how cool that they picked R5-D4, you know, outside of R2 and 3PO in the original films, one of the iconic droids, to be so prominent. So, yeah, I love that. And an A-Wing in Starfighter, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. So, you know, bring the A-Wing in. You know, we've done it so many times now. I can kind of forgive the fact that we can't move on from X-Wings and TIE fighters. But an A-Wing, which really hasn't had a lot of screen time and hasn't had any real significant moments other than that one that we already spoke about, it would really bring it to prominence. And sort of like all of a sudden, all these people that have got these droids boxed ones from donkeys years ago, they could stick another 0 on the end and good luck to them.
Countermeasures.
It's got a Miradyne 4X Phantom short-range sensor jammer, mega useful for if you're going into sort of really hot areas, if you can put a sensor jammer on, okay, it alerts the enemy that somebody's there to jam the sensors, but the range is so big it's difficult to find them. So that's a useful piece of kit. It's got chaff or a flare launcher, depending on how it's sort of set up, which again is a bit like Obi-Wan's fighter in Attack of the Clones, but that can throw stuff out and throw bits and bobs out just to pull the enemy away and put them off.
Armament.
It's got 2 Borstal R9 laser cannons, 2 Dimec HM6 concussion missile launchers, and it carries 6 concussion missiles on a standard load. So it's not that heavily armoured. It probably packs quite a punch with its blasters, but outside of that, low loading for missiles. It's not that kind of ship.
Yeah, so there's no proton torpedoes, nothing like that?
None of that, which is what the X-Wing has got. So I guess you would point to that being the reason, even though you could retrofit or reset it, or set the ship up to do a specific run, because a lot of these vehicles are malleable in that way. But if you just look at the bare facts like that, you would just quickly say, well, an A-Wing's not set up like that. It couldn't do it.
Then this is why we use the X-Wing and the Y-Wing in the Battle of Yavin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crew complement.
Yeah. It carries 1 pilot, no passengers, so I'm sorry, I'd love to give you a lift, but I can't.
Cargo capacity.
It carries 40 kilograms of cargo, which is nothing, and has consumables for a week. So if you did have any issues, at least you've got 7 days to figure it out before you run out of food, run out of water, and presumably at some point run out of air, which is not the best way to go. So you would imagine vehicles like this, they would generally be tied or fly fairly close to a mothership, to a tactical base.
Yeah.
It would be flying out of the headquarters frigate and flying back to the headquarters frigate. X-Wings always feel like they could go out and fly around half of the outer rim on their own and come back. They're not constricted in the same way.
Yeah.
This is more of a short range.
I suppose if you think of a battle in terms of a game of chess, I'd always thought of the X-Wing as being the pawn. But this really sets the A-Wings up as the pawns, really. They're the ones that you send out first, try to clear some headway, and then perhaps send the X-Wings in after that.
Well, that's a good point. You've just said that, probably without even realising it, because when you look at the usages for an A-Wing, starfighter combat, interceptor, starfighter screen, attack craft, escort, reconnaissance missions, that's exactly what you've just described. Intelligence operations, because it's a small ship and you could obviously hide it much easier, and ground force support. So it covers, even just there, you see that it covers quite a broad base of possible usages.
I think probably because it hasn't really got the same look as like the X-Wing or a Y-Wing, which stylistically you would see one of those coming from a mile away. An A-Wing, by virtue of how it looks, it's almost sort of like incognito, isn't it? It can get into any sort of situation.
But I wonder, you saying that, I wonder... this is a broader question. Around the galaxy, what sort of ships would you see more of? Now, a lot of people wouldn't even own a ship. Yeah. A lot of people probably only own a land-based thing like a land speeder or something like that, or a skimmer or a swoop or speed or whatever. I wonder whether that is comparable to us having a car, or actually in reality, us having a car is like them having a speeder, and somebody having a ship is like somebody having a boat, except you could have you don't need to be by the water to have a starship. You can be anywhere on a planet, whereas obviously here you need to be by a body of water. But that being said, if there's vessels out there flying around and doing whatever they're doing, I wonder if there's more vessels that are starfighter size than freighter size, because, if you've got a family of 4 and 2 dogs and you need to travel around, you're going to need a freighter or bigger or a cruiser or something like that. Whereas me, when it's just me and Rue, we could get away with a 2-man fighter and be able to travel and do what we want. So I just wonder what the most common type of ship is.
No, that's quite cool, yeah. And also, where do the likes of mini rigs figure into this? I would love to see the mini rigs turn up in a proper film.
Oh man, that would be the best.
Just to see like a load of MLC3s in battle.
Or an AST5
or a PDT8, anything.
Yeah.
Just
I really think they did us proud with the mini rigs we got and the accessories like the tripod laser cannon and the little unit with the hydro spanners and all that sort of stuff. All of that was like the mini radar laser cannon and stuff like that. They were brilliant, but I wish, and obviously when you get to Jedi, it's mostly Ewok stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
The glider.
You get that there's that forest ranger, and then there's that like one-man skiff as well.
That's it. Yeah. And the little mini Imperial shuttle. But I wish they'd done more. I wish, even though they were a bit of a fudge
to
give us something. You know, you did get a full-size Imperial shuttle, but like you say, wouldn't it be cool if we just saw an episode where one guy lands in this dinky little Imperial shuttle and just steps out like he's stepping out of a go-kart? I just think that'd be hilarious. Or a one-man skiff, somebody on the sands of Tatooine, you just see one in the distance.
That would be so cool. Just, you know what? Somebody's going to do that one of these days. I hope
so.
One of these big Star Wars geeks like Filoni will do that one of these days.
I hope so.
That'd be great. Let's get Bosk in his Cap 2. That'd be fantastic.
Cap 2 was a great ship. Cap 2. And I was in my headcanon is, because he had Houndstooth, didn't he, later on as his main ship. But my headcanon is within the Houndstooth somewhere, there's Cap 2. Yeah. So he can go out in his little bubble ship with his claw at the back and suckers on the odds and just go out. Do you ever try and stick your Cap 2 to anything? Did you ever get it to stick to the window?
It did, but I mean, actually, I think it did stay there quite well, actually. Yeah, it did, yeah.
I'm learning a lot today. Affiliation, Alliance to Restore the Republic, obviously the Rebel Alliance, later the New Republic, and then later versions, which we will get to one day, the more modern versions of the A-Wing was part of the Resistance. But it was based off the original R-22 prototype, which was developed as a replacement for the Republic's Athersprite starfighter. Now, the Athersprite's one of the Jedi starfighters that we see in the prequel trilogy. You can kind of see the lineage. I mean, you saw that first one in Attack of the Clones, which has that Star Destroyer profile almost. Yeah. And then you get to the later one, the ETA-1, which has got like the TIE Fighter cockpit and sort of slightly different design to it. But you can kind of see where they're going with it, that an A-Wing could come from that.
Yeah. It's... We get this all the time though in Star Wars. We get the evolution of vehicles, which is quite cute. But I just think that some of these shipbuilders are a bit lazy. We'll just go with what we've got here. Yeah, let's just carry on. Well, what I've designed a new vehicle, mates. Oh yeah. What have you got? But it looks just like the last A-Wing. Yeah, and?
But it's not got the little fins on the side or the Go Faster stripes. Yeah,
this one goes to 11.
Nice, exactly. So that vehicle was rejected by the Empire. Rebel cells then acquired some of the R-22s, stripped them down to boost its speed to counter the new TIE Interceptor, and they would come to play a key role, obviously, in the victory at Endor. So I like that thought as well. I mean, you had the Y-Wings in the Clone Wars that were big and hefty and bulky, but actually when you pulled all the plating off, there was what we consider a classic Y-Wing underneath, because all that plating slowed it down mostly in atmosphere. It doesn't slow it down at all outside, but to do the similar thing to the A-Wing, strip it back a bit, take some of that bulk off it, and then have a fast attack vehicle. It makes all the sense for like a guerrilla outfit like the Rebel Alliance was at the time.
I always felt that the Y-Wing looked very flimsy, those tubes coming off the back. But the A-Wing, to me, it just looked so solid compared to the other vehicles. I think that's the main difference about it, is that it does have that sort of robust quality to it.
Absolutely.
An X-Wing looks as flimsy as hell because of its wings. A Y-Wing because of the tubes coming off the back for the engines. A B-Wing just looks like it could float away in a breeze. So the A-Wing... muscle car sort of thing, whoa, I'm here kind of thing. Yeah,
it is an Audi Quattro, isn't it? It's got that. It's got that about it. Yeah,
it's an Audi Quattro. There you go. We've sorted it out. It's not the A-Wing, it's the Audi wing.
Hello, Bantha Tracks. Bantha Tracks. I screwed it up. Hi, Bantha Tracks.
So during the Galactic Civil War, they were used by the Alliance in early battles against Imperial forces, proved themselves to be capable fighters. They attained a number of more A-Wings, modified them, removed those heavy weapons and shields to make them fast enough to combat the TIE Interceptors, as we've just mentioned. And the resulting modified A-Wings were faster than the TIE Interceptor. So that chart I mentioned in the Jedi sketchbook just has them a smidge ahead. There's nothing in it. After the evacuation of Echo Base, obviously in The Empire Strikes Back, a number were part of the 4th Division, where the gathered rebel forces regrouped and awaited any stragglers. That's the rebel fleet getting back together. However, the division was found and attacked by Commander Elian Zara's Hunter fleet. From memory, this is from the Marvel comics, and resulted in a number of A-Wings, including Shara Bay's A-Wing of Green Squadron, attempting to defend the 4th Division so it could escape to back up Rendezvous Point Gamma 9. So all these technical places, these little hiding points they've got around the mid-rim and everywhere else. But the A-Wings are very kind of integral in this. They were deployed by the Alliance fleet at the Battle of Endor, were under Lando's command, Lando Calrissian's command, Green Squadron flew against the second Death Star. Once Han Solo's strike team brought down the Death Star's shield generator, 2 A-Wing pilots flew into the Death Star but broke off to draw TIE fighters away. Again, that's the sequence that you see try and take something back to the surface. Green Leader Arvel Krind was hit by fire and crashed into the bridge of the Superstar Destroyer, which you mentioned earlier, and the Executor, resulting in its destruction. And finally, A-Wings were also present at the Battle of Jakku, which is just a year after the Battle of Endor. So, as a military vehicle, as a vessel of importance, historical importance, massive key moment, drawing the TIE fighters away from Wedge and Lando as they take out the reactor. There's some key moments that you can point to, isn't there?
Pivotal, absolutely pivotal moment in the battle, that was, wasn't it? I'm sure that's something that they would have reflected on afterwards as well. For something that's fairly anonymous in terms of its screen time, its significance can't be understated.
It's nearly 2026. We'll have a think now on what vehicle we're going to talk about next. Anything leap to mind, just off the top of your head? It might not be what we talk about, but anything that you're thinking, I'll quite fancy a chat about that.
I think I would like to talk about Moff Gideon's TIE Fighter type vehicle that he got.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
Isn't that an Outland TIE Fighter or something like that?
I think so. I love the way it landed.
Yeah.
In that one episode. I'd like to dig down a little bit on that and let's have a look at that.
I like that. All right, I'll do some research and I'll pull out the details and let's do that one next. They're doing a TIE Fighter after an A-Wing. Feels right. That's a great choice. And when you see that land, it's like, why didn't all TIE Fighters land like that? That makes all the sense in the world.
Thanks for listening to Start Your Engines. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com and be sure to comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fanthatracks. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fanthatracks intro and our Start Your Engines opening music, Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers, and of course the data miners at Wikipedia. Remember to tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock UK time, 4 PM Eastern and 1 PM Pacific on Facebook, YouTube and Twitch. And check out our Fanthatracks Radio Friday night rotation. It's every Friday night at 7 o'clock UK time for new episodes of The Phantom from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks, and every Tuesday at 7 o'clock UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks.
Let's sign off for 2025 on that one. Thanks so much for joining me as always, Paul.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Until then, everybody, have a great Christmas.
And I hope you all get an Audi wing in your stockings.
Coming up next on Fanthatracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.